2002. A man in West Virginia checks a Powerball ticket he'd bought at a grocery store the day before while filling up his truck. He barely played. $314.9 million. The largest single winning ticket in American history at that point. He took the lump sum, about $113 million after taxes. 5 years later, he told ABC News he wished he'd torn the ticket up. If you've watched anything else on this channel, you already know the shape this story is supposed to take. Poor man wins money. Poor man has no idea what to do with money. Money leaves. We've spent 4 videos on the psychology that decides which way it goes. Except Jack Whitaker doesn't fit. He wasn't broke. He owned a successful construction business and was already worth around $17 million. He'd built that himself. He met payroll, ran contracts, handled banks. By any reasonable measure, he was a man who already knew how to handle money. A lot of it. And it took him apart anyway. That's why this episode exists. Because if competence was the variable, Whitaker survives. He didn't. Something else was operating. Start with the thing that's easy to miss because the number is so loud. $17 million, built over decades, is an amount of money you have a relationship with. You know where every piece of it came from. You know which parts are liquid, which are tied up in equipment, which are really just the business looking like money. It arrived slowly enough that your habits, your marriage, your friendships, your sense of who you are, all had time to grow around it. $113 million arriving on a Wednesday is a different substance entirely. Same currency, completely unrelated experience, because the money didn't come alone. It came with a headline. Within days, everyone in the state knew his name, his face, his hometown, and roughly what he was worth to the dollar, a thing that is almost never true of wealthy people, and never true by accident. Ronald Redd, 2 episodes ago, was worth $8 million, and nobody in his town had the faintest idea. That invisibility wasn't a personality quirk. It was structural protection. Whitaker got the opposite, a public, precisely quantified fortune attached to a specific address. The lottery didn't just hand him money, it published him. Here's what people underestimate about sudden money, and it's the part that has nothing to do with self-control. He set up a foundation. He gave roughly $15 million to build 2 churches. He gave away more than $50 million in houses, cars, and cash. He'd grown up with nothing, and he was, by every account, trying to do something decent with it. He hired the clerk who had sold him the ticket just to help handle the mail, because the requests came by the sack. And still it wasn't enough, because the arithmetic doesn't work. There is no amount of generosity that satisfies an unbounded number of askers. Every yes is public, so every yes produces more askers. Every no is also public, so every no produces a story about the rich man who said no. There's no move on that board that improves the position. Then it got worse than awkward. He was drugged at a strip club and robbed of a briefcase holding more than $500,000. His business was broken into, his vehicle was broken into. When police pulled him over one night, he was carrying $117,000 in cash. Asked why he moved around with that much money on him, his answer was simply, because I can. That's not a man managing a fortune. That's a man being managed by one. This part is where the story stops being about finance. Whitaker had a granddaughter, Brandy. He was reportedly giving her about $2,000 a week and had bought her 4 cars. She was 17. 2 years after the win, she died of a drug overdose. I'm not going to make a tidy point out of a teenager's death. Addiction has its own causes, and no jackpot is required. What can be said carefully is what he himself came to believe, that the money brought a certain kind of person into their lives, and that he'd handed a teenager the means to do whatever those people suggested. Lawsuits that damaged the construction business he'd spent his life building. A divorce after 42 years of marriage. A house fire. He died in 2020. $17 million, built slowly, had come with a life attached. A wife, a business, a town, a granddaughter. $113 million, arriving at once, removed nearly all of it in about half a decade. He put it plainly himself in 2007. Since he won the lottery, he said, he thinks there's no control for greed. If you have something, someone else always wants it. Now, the obvious objection, Almost nobody watching this is going to win a Powerball jackpot, and the odds are somewhere around 1 in 292 million. Except sudden money is not rare at all. It's just usually smaller and quieter. An inheritance, a house that sells for more than anyone expected, a business exit, an insurance settlement, equity that vests all at once. Trillions of dollars are going to move from one American generation to the next over the coming decades, and most of it will land on people who did not build it and were not trained by the process of building it. That's the actual mechanism in this whole episode. Money that you build teaches you slowly while you're building it. The habits, the boundaries, the answer to, can I afford this? The practice of telling people no. Money that arrives complete comes with none of that. Whitaker had the curriculum. He'd earned $17 million the long way, and the second fortune came in so much faster, so much larger, and so much more publicly than the first one that his education didn't transfer. Which means the useful question isn't whether you'd blow it. Everyone thinks they wouldn't. The question is, what would arrive with it? Who would know? What they'd ask for? And whether any of your existing habits were built to hold something that size. Back to the grocery store on Christmas Eve. A man stops for gas. He rarely plays. He buys a ticket almost absent-mindedly and drives home to a wife of 4 decades, a business he built himself, a granddaughter, and $17 million he understood completely. Every single one of those things was gone within about 5 years, and the ticket is the only thing that changed. Look at the 5 of these together now. 300 million earned and lost. A janitor's wage held for 60 years until it became 8 million. The largest upside in business history declined for reasons that were sound, and now a competent, successful, already wealthy man handed the biggest jackpot in the country, who ended up wishing out loud that he'd destroyed the ticket. The one thing none of them turned on was how much money was involved. I've been asking for 5 videos what kind of person keeps money. This one is the correction to that question. Sometimes it isn't the person at all. It's the shape of the arrival. Slow money teaches. Fast money just lands, and it lands on whatever life was already standing there. Next time we go somewhere less dramatic and much closer to home. Not fortunes, but the ordinary, invisible money decisions people make in their 20s and 30s that quietly set the entire trajectory. The other 4 are on the channel, and this one lands harder if you've seen them.